mode.
Welcome everybody to apps.com, e-commerce apps for QuickBooks Online, Shopify, and sync with PayPal. Give me about 1 minute because I'm going to record this session, and the webinar system takes about 30 seconds or so to start the actual voice recording. So we'll start in about 30 seconds or so. Once again, welcome everybody. June 17th, 2015, to this episode of apps.com, e-commerce apps for QuickBooks Online. We're going to be covering Shopify and sync with PayPal today. So a little bit about me. My name is Hector Garcia. I work and live in Miami, Florida. I'm an advanced QuickBooks Pro advisor. I teach QuickBooks and Excel in my own classroom. I'm a member of the Trainer Writer Network and the Intuit Trainer Writer Network and the National Advisor Network, and I'm a co-presenter for QB Power Hour. I was a guest speaker at QB Connect 2014 and hope to be a guest speaker in 2015 as well, and we'll talk about QB Connect towards the very end of the webinar. Our learning objectives for today is talk about apps in general, how apps for QuickBooks engage with other systems and other platforms. So we'll talk about the apps.com website and what apps represent to the QuickBooks Online ecosystem. You should be able to learn how the functionality of these specific e-commerce apps, Shopify and PayPal, will facilitate better bookkeeping or faster bookkeeping and ultimately more accurate bookkeeping. So if you're an accountant, you present timely financial statements. And the idea is also, as we go through the apps and what they do, you start thinking about the types of clients that would benefit from this. So this is whether a client already has PayPal, already has Shopify, or they don't, and think about how these apps can help their business. So there's a consulting opportunity for accountants and QuickBooks consultants in terms of recommending the apps or integrating them with QuickBooks Online. So those are the learning objectives. The way CPE works is you must be in the entire webinar. So most exactly, you have to be 50 minutes in the webinar, but the webinar would be roughly about between 50 minutes to an hour. There will be a CPE keyword that would be somewhere in the middle of the webinar. You have to write down that keyword, and then there will be a question that will prompt also towards the end of the webinar. I can't give you the exact time, and you would have to answer the correct answer. This is the only way that we can have our own records that there was attendance during the entire time. This is why both the keyword and the question come in at exactly random times. It will take roughly about 3 weeks to get the certificate, and we will send it to the same email address that's logged for the webinar itself. And if there's an issue getting the certificate or you haven't gotten it, there's a question about it, there's the email in there, accountant_training@intuit.com, and make sure you add that into your regular inbox approved sender folders, because sometimes that can go into the spam. We'll send the certificate once and that's it, so you must keep it for your own records. Intuit will not have copies of the certificates once they're issued. So this YouTube link that you see here, and I'm going to go ahead and, actually there is, if you look in the chat window, the PDF version of this presentation, it's available for download. So you can click on the link there, and then that's a whole hour webinar where I talk about apps and the ecosystem, and we'll go sort of in depth about how apps function. So on this particular webinar for today, we'll do a quick introduction about apps. But if you really want to understand apps and this is your first time dealing with QuickBooks apps, I recommend that particular video recording. So in the context of QuickBooks, what's an app? An app, it's best described as an application that is designed to do functions that QuickBooks is not necessarily designed to do. In some cases, an app will do things very similar to QuickBooks, but they tend to specialize on transactions that are not related to core accounting. And some do, right? So obviously PayPal, money coming in and money being paid, that has to do with accounting, but a lot of apps don't really have anything to do with accounting, but they do have a common denominator, like the customer name, the invoice amount, the date of the transaction and that sort of thing. And to avoid the double data entry, the idea is that the apps integrate and they download the information and push it into QuickBooks or vice versa. Now, some apps are platforms, right? So by platform means that it's not a unifunctional app. It actually does a lot more things like that. Shopify is a great example of that. Shopify is a platform. Shopify is at its core a e-commerce system, but it can also connect to other systems by itself, so that makes it a platform. So you can actually use PayPal or Shopify completely separate from QuickBooks. You know, you're not necessarily only stuck using PayPal or Shopify because you use QuickBooks. So this is these are independent of each other. Okay. All right. So why use the third-party apps? I think that's a fair question. The question is, you know, why do I need to use a third-party app? Why can't QuickBooks just build in this functionality, you know, within their ecosystem or be within their internal functionality? And the reason is that Intuit, it's focusing and concentrating their efforts on making a stable accounting platform. That's what QuickBooks does. And the idea is to focus all the energy around making it an operating system for the small business and allowing other developers, other brilliant developers, you know, PayPal, you know, it's nothing short of brilliant, to create their own platforms or their own systems that clients can use and can be part of their own business without really having to have it within QuickBooks Online, because by making the QuickBooks Online platform open, you can allow these brilliant applications that serve the dynamic world of small business that handle other types of things that is not core accounting, and then, you know, in sense allow QuickBooks to transfer the information back and forth. So this is why, because of the ability to do this through the cloud, Intuit doesn't have to place any focus on trying to serve every single market or solve for every single problem. The apps that we're going to talk about today are Sync with PayPal and Shopify. And again, the app themselves are the conduit in which the data from PayPal goes into QuickBooks, or the data from Shopify goes into QuickBooks. Although I'll talk about PayPal a little bit, and then I'll talk about Shopify a little bit, you know, as their platforms. We're going to focus more about the integration and what the role of the apps is to copy the information back and forth. So let's talk about e-commerce. There are many e-commerce platforms out there: Shopify, Magento, BigCart, 3D Cart, eBay, Amazon. I mean, there's probably thousands, but I'm going to say there's hundreds. An e-commerce application, it's just basically a place where a merchant, a small business or a big business can place their product and sell the product via the internet. Now, some of these shopping carts that you see here will have their own integrated payment systems, like Amazon. Amazon uses their own payment system. Shopify has their own payment system, but they can also integrate with other payment systems like PayPal, for example. So it's an example that we're going to cover here. So the e-commerce platform itself, it's more about the shopping cart, about the website in which the clients buy, not necessarily on how they pay. Okay, so how they pay would be a merchant processor or a payment gateway. Okay, PayPal, not sure about size, but PayPal is probably one of the biggest ones when you account their worldwide footprint, right? Yeah, there's certainly some really big ones like First Data, Square, Stripe, Intuit Payments, of course, have to mention QuickBooks Intuit Payments. So these are all payment gateways or merchant processors. Sometimes they're both, and these are designed to get the money into the merchant's bank account, right? So it's whatever it takes to take it away from the customer and into the business that's selling the product. That's what PayPal or PayPal, QuickBooks Payments, that's what a payment gateway or a processor, a merchant processor does. Now, this is not a shopping cart system. PayPal is not a shopping cart system. It is the conduit in which people pay the merchant, okay? Now, before we jump into that, let's talk about something called multi-channel integration. There's another app worth mentioning, but we're not going to spend any details on, called WebGility. I'm sure there'll be another webinar in the future about WebGility. WebGility is designed for the multi-shopping cart system, right? So if you have a client or you yourself are a user and you're dealing with Shopify, Amazon, eBay, BigCommerce, Magento, and you're dealing with multiple shopping cart systems, you have multiple channels in which you sell, you're probably not going to want to integrate each one by one. The way we're gonna talk about integrating one by one, right? So each channel, each platform to QuickBooks one by one. You may want to use an app designed to aggregate all the information. So if you're looking for sort of an order manager or a place where you can see all your orders from every single place, and then make decisions on what you're going to ship and stuff like that before you send it into QuickBooks, you would use a multi-channel integration tool like WebGility. So we're not going to get into details about WebGility, but I want to sort of disclaim the difference between multi-channel integration and direct data integration on each particular channel. So we're going to talk about taking the Shopify data specifically and pushing it into QuickBooks, or taking the PayPal data and pushing it into QuickBooks. That's the focus on today's webinar, different than having a place where everything gets aggregated and then the user has one more step to take in order to go into QuickBooks. We're going to focus on the individual data integration of each one. Okay. Now, what's unique about these? In the webinars, I almost always sort of compare them and contrast them. Unfortunately, Shopify and PayPal are not competitors in any way. I'm sure, in some of the processing payments piece, there's a little bit of an overlap, but for the most part, PayPal, it's designed for something else different than Shopify is. PayPal, it's almost like a bank, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say they're a bank or not a bank, because PayPal is technically not a bank. But PayPal is designed to receive customer payments and also make payments, right? So PayPal is not only a merchant processor or a gateway or a buy now button on your website where people can pay you. It's also a place where you can make expenses. Therefore, when you sync the data, whether you use the sync tool or the bank feeds tool that I'll talk about, the data that's being fed, you're going to expect to see both income components and expense components. Shopify is different. Shopify is just a shop. It's just a shopping cart. It's just an e-commerce platform. So when you're actually downloading information from Shopify into QuickBooks, you're really only expecting to see income components, not any expense components, because Shopify really doesn't hold anybody's money, or you can make payments with it. And what's interesting about these two apps is that they can be used in combination. I actually have an example in which I'll show you, where certain payments from PayPal are related to a sale that you made in shopping cart in Shopify that happen to use PayPal as the method of payment. So they can actually be used in combination. They don't conflict with each other, which is actually kind of neat. Before I jump into PayPal, I just want to ask my fellows here at Intuit, are there any questions or any pending comments I should cover before going into what Shopify is? I hear sirens in the background. So, okay, I guess there's no questions. Wendy, Karen, no? Okay, so I'll move forward. So I hear some sirens in the background, which is actually not coming from me. So I'm going to go ahead and mute all the panelists unless they muted themselves. Okay, it looks like they muted themselves. Okay, so Shopify, let's talk about the Shopify, the platform, not so much Shopify, the app. Shopify, the platform, has different levels, right? The starter, basic, professional, unlimited, and this is coming from the app module inside QuickBooks Online. If you go directly to the Shopify website, there may be some modifications in terms of what is it that they offer. So, don't take this 100% lightly. You go to shopify.com and you can see. So Shopify, it's basically designed to have a service in which you can build a website. And I want to jump into just sort of a Shopify website real quick to kind of show you. So the Shopify website is it's a website in which you go in there and you take a look at the different services that they offer, whether it's a basic, professional, unlimited, whatever it happens to be. And then once you set up your service, basically you will have a very easy to use shopping cart system in which you can add your products, and you can have a website with shopping enabled in hours. I don't want to say in minutes. You could technically have it in minutes, but if you were going to sit there and upload all your products and stuff like that, it would be a question of hours, which 10 years ago it's unheard of, right? You had to pay thousands of dollars for e-commerce platform. Nowadays with Shopify, it's this much easier. Now the app itself, it has to do with the sync of the information. So when you are setting up the Shopify app, the very first question you're going to be asked is, okay, so whenever I have a Shopify sale, where in QuickBooks am I going to put this information when I download it? So I'm going to show you. I'm going to go into my Shopify shopping cart here. So I'll show you. This is what the back end of Shopify looks like. This is when you log into Shopify, and if you happen to have a Shopify service, you know what this screen looks like. Here on the orders, you can see all the people that have bought from you lately and how much it was and the order number, and you can click on any of these and you can actually see who the customer was, the address. This is how Shopify works. I won't focus a lot on how Shopify functions, but I want to just kind of give you some background. This is the back end of Shopify, just to kind of show you the website so this is the back end, what you're seeing here. And this is the website in which, this is my own website in which I sell QuickBooks. I happen to be a QuickBooks reseller. I'm not promoting in any way that you buy from me or anything like that, but what I'm saying is this is an actual shopping cart, and the experience is the user clicks on the product, they click on add to cart, and then they go through the process. They can pay with PayPal, as you see here, or they can pay through the built-in merchant service that PayPal has. So once the user goes through and puts the order in, you see the order come in here in your pending orders, and you can click on any of the pending orders, and you can actually see who is it that bought from you and what product they bought, and that's basically what the whole shopping cart experience looks like. However, here under the app section, I'll show you, and you can have multiple types of apps connected to Shopify, but I'm going to show you specifically the QuickBooks app. So this is what the QuickBooks app looks like, and basically this is from the Shopify website. You connect it to QuickBooks Online, and up here where it says settings, so I'll show you what that screen was looking like. On the settings section, this is what I tell it. Okay, so based on my chart of accounts, and then let me go into QuickBooks real quick, and just for some context, I'm going to go into my chart of accounts. Whoops, I clicked on the wrong one. Let me click on chart of accounts. So based on my QuickBooks chart of accounts, this is the setup of Shopify. I'm going to say, whenever I have a product sale, go ahead and point it into this income account. Whenever I have a gift card sale, so this is when the client paid with the gift card, point to this liability account. And whenever the client pays me to my PayPal bank account, right? Because in QuickBooks, PayPal is a bank account. Real world, it may not, but and then connect it to this particular bank account. So that's what this process is. And all the other payments are not PayPal. Send it to undeposited funds, right? So this is just standard process of how PayPal will, how Shopify will figure out how to push information into QuickBooks. You set up the sales tax, and then it says, do I want to create a new customer or one generic customer, and so forth. And that's basically how you set up the app. Then the next process is to actually choose the date range. So let's say I want to download all the transactions from January 1st to today, and then I'll click on export Shopify orders, and then basically what this will do is it will take that original list of all the orders that I was showing you earlier, and it will actually push them into QuickBooks Online, and then it will avoid duplications. It knows when things have already been entered, and then here in the bottom where it says previous exports, you can see sort of the history of every order I have exported or I have downloaded. So I'm going to go into QuickBooks, and then I'm going to click here where it says customers, and then basically the way Shopify works is I set it up so every customer comes in as one customer called Shopify customer, because in this particular case I have so many orders that I really don't want the system to create each customer one at a time, but that's what that setting was for. So if I would have gone into settings here and I would have selected the little checkbox that says create new customers as Shopify customers, instead of putting them under one customer, it will actually create one customer at a time. So it depends up to you whether or not you want to have every single customer in QuickBooks Online, or you want to have one summarized customer in there. And then what you see here, all these sales receipts, I didn't do any of these things manually. This was my Shopify app that pushed it into my QuickBooks Online. So I'll click on one just to kind of let you know kind of how the breakdown works, and you will have all the original sort of information from the customer there, and you will have the product that it was sold, and Shopify will create the product, and we'll go into the item list real quick to show you. I don't have to create the items in my QuickBooks Online. Shopify will create the items for me. So I will have detail level in my sales receipts. I will have detail level in there. Now, also notice that the client paid me through the Shopify payments merchant system or through the payment gateway. It wasn't PayPal, so it sent the payment to undeposited funds. And let me close this here real quick. And then let me open one, and hopefully I'll find one that has PayPal. Hopefully I don't have to click. Okay, that's perfect. So then we have this other customer that actually paid me through PayPal. And notice this doesn't go to undeposited funds. This goes straight into my PayPal bank, or what QuickBooks calls your PayPal bank. So you kind of see how the two types of payments can just affect the way that sales receipt looks like. So what you're seeing here is exactly what gets pushed from Shopify into QuickBooks. Let me go back to the PowerPoint slide here, and I'll cover the next couple of slides. So this is the setting I was talking about creating one single customer called Shopify customers. This is the date range in terms of what I would choose to push into QuickBooks Online. And this is what the screen looks like with the sales receipt, which I've already shown you through the demonstration. And then you get to see that there's an item being created and where the money, the payment is going to. And if there happens to be a PayPal one, you would actually have your PayPal go straight into your PayPal bank account, or your QuickBooks bank account anyway. And then you can also obviously pull reports in QuickBooks Online, and you can break it down based on, was this a Shopify payments transaction, or was this a PayPal transaction? And you can actually see them all in detail. So this is what it would look like in QuickBooks Online. And then the very last piece here is the bank deposit. So let me go over to QuickBooks Online here. So if you remember, whenever you receive payments through your PayPal merchant, okay, not PayPal, Shopify merchant, all those monies are going to be bundled up, and they eventually get deposited into the bank. So if you are an actual Shopify user, you know exactly how that works. You get an email from Shopify saying, hey, you're going to get paid, and then you get paid the net amount. So what ends up happening is whenever that payment comes into the bank, then I have to do one more step here, which is the bank deposit. And then through the bank deposit, this is where I'll choose all the Shopify payments in this case. So let's say there's a whole bunch here. So I'll pick all the Shopify payments, and I'll select them here. And then at the end of the day, my bank will have $359, but it would be net of the fee. So I would have to make sure that at the very end I add my merchant fee, whatever. Let's have one called Shopify fee. And the important piece here is that the Shopify doesn't sync with your bank. It syncs with your sales receipts. When the money comes into the bank, you have to make that final step, for your bank reconciliation of making sure that whatever the fee is gets discounted from there, and that's the actual money that goes into the bank. Because when you go into each specific sales receipt, and I'll kind of show you, I'll exit without saving, the sales receipt doesn't contain the PayPal fee, the Shopify fee. And PayPal works a little bit different, so I'll kind of show you. So when we switch over to PayPal, I'll show you the whole PayPal scene. But that's in a nutshell how the integration works. So if it's a Shopify payment, you're going to get, and you're going to see everything coming to your undeposited funds, and you have to make one last transaction, which is match it up with the actual money that came into the bank. Okay, this is the CPA keyword for today, so make sure you write it down, salamander. And then I'm going to leave the CPA keyword for about a minute, and I'd like to see if there are any questions for now. So to my Intuit team helping me out, are there any questions I need to answer for the time being?
Good morning, Hector. There's no questions so far.
Okay, I do see somebody says, are there demos available to test these apps before offering to the clients? So let me answer that one real quick. So I happen to be a Shopify user, and I happen to be a PayPal user, and I'm actually using my own to show you because I'm very familiar with the transactions. You could always set up a QuickBooks Online account for free, 30-day trial, which is exactly what I did here. So that's one place you can test. However, what I don't know is, and I'll ask Shopify first, is there a demo Shopify account that people can sync it so they can actually experience it with, with fake transactions into maybe their own QBO account. So I'll ask that to my the reps from Shopify here, and then if they want to text it privately or just jump in, I will go ahead and answer that.
Hi guys, yeah, it's Nico from Shopify here. Just to answer that question, it is possible to set up a free trial account with Shopify. Our standard free trial is actually normally 14 days. So if you just go to shopify.com and sign up for a trial there, you can play around with an account for 14 days for free. But actually, if you go to shopify.com/QuickBooks, through that page, because we're working in partnership with Intuit, we do actually offer a 30-day free trial, so you can get a month for free.
Okay, so that's shopify.com/QuickBooks. And the question was, I think, a little bit more around, because even if you set up a very important piece, even if you set up a free account through here, there will not be any products loaded in there. So the user still has to create some products and create some transactions in order to be able to do any sort of sync, correct?
That's correct, yeah. You can actually put your own test orders in there to see if it syncs, but it doesn't pre-populate with any product. You can just kind of create a handful yourself and then put through some test transactions to see if it falls through.
All right, thank you, I appreciate it. So that was the clarification about that question that was asked regarding of how I would do some sort of test. I have seen another person that is saying does Shopify automatically transfer the money into your bank, or do you have to request a withdrawal like PayPal? And Kathy, the answer to that is Shopify, it's set up already that as soon as the payments settle, from their internal Shopify payment system, as soon as the payments settle, they're going to be pushed into your bank, and they're going to be grouped based on days. So all the payments for Monday are going to be grouped, and maybe you'll get them by Thursday. And I don't want to make any claims in terms of how many days it takes, because how long you've been a merchant for and how many chargebacks and all that stuff can affect the time until you get paid. But it will typically be about 2 to 3 days, and it automatically pushes into your bank account. You don't have to request the money. The other question is, I missed some, but I'm wondering, how do you reconcile the individual payments with the bank deposit? And that was the demonstration I was showing earlier, that and I want to go back into QuickBooks here. What happens is when you get paid through Shopify, let's say I got 3 orders in one day. A couple of days later, you're going to get a bank deposit that's going to bundle all the 3 payments, and it's also going to charge a net of the fee. So this last step is important to keep in mind. The last step is you go into QuickBooks and you go to make deposit, and then you find the transactions are all common to the same day. So let's say that, for example, this order for the 25th here, let's say these 3 orders on the 25th and the 26th, let's say this happens to be a weekend, these will all be bundled into one lump sum deposit of, let's say, $193.50. So then you would have to come in here and put the, whatever the merchant fee account that you have, Shopify fee, and then you would have to deduct the $6, right, whatever the fee happens to be, to make sure that this amount eventually synchronizes with your bank. So this is not an automated process. This is still a manual process. Shopify doesn't push any information into your bank and does not push any information about fees. It only pushes the gross amount of the sales receipt. So that's to clarify that question about doing that. Somebody's asking about how long it takes to do a settlement. My account takes 2 to 3 days, but it should be different each time, because it depends on the industry, and I'm not sure if we are if I'm allowed to just give a couple of days, just because it may change. Then somebody's asking, how much does Shopify charge per transaction? So I'll just ask that person to just log into the Shopify website and take a look at the fees in here, the credit card rates, because I don't want to give a rate. This is being recorded, and rates tend to fluctuate. So so just go to shopify.com and go to pricing, and then you'll actually see that. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to move on to, if there's no more questions, I'm going to move on to Shopify. So are there any more questions that you guys see that I didn't cover? Okay. So salamander is the CPA keyword. Make sure that you write that down, because towards the end when we ask the question, this is going to be part of the question that we're going to ask. So make sure you have it. Salamander is a CPA keyword. Going once, going twice, sold. Okay, so let's talk about sync with PayPal. Sync with PayPal is it's a relatively new app. Not sure how old Shopify is, but and it's really, really neat because it solves direct data integration issues. PayPal tends to be a little bit difficult for a lot of bookkeepers to understand because since PayPal is not a traditional bank, they don't have the bank statements don't look like brick and mortar bank statements. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to understand exactly what's happening. So Sync with PayPal is designed to get rid of that pain point. Okay, but let's talk about what role PayPal has in your accounting. And the big question is, it's PayPal a bank, or do we treat PayPal like a bank? So although PayPal is not traditional brick and mortar bank, it processes incoming payments, which are in turn sort of deposited into your PayPal balance. It's not necessarily a deposit just because of how PayPal is structured legally, but it is a payment that gets added to your balance. And then tons of vendors accept payments through PayPal, so you can use in turn that same customer payment balance to pay your own expenses or purchases or whatever. And then that nets from your available balance that you can eventually transfer into your actual bank account. Now, PayPal data integration, which means PayPal transactions, they can be fed into QuickBooks in two ways. One, through the traditional bank feeds, which is how other bank accounts push the data, and also through the Sync with PayPal app. But to give you some context, I'm actually going to show you bank feeds as well, because I think it's important to look at both. And they're supposed to be not used in combination because it'll create a lot of confusion. So you'll either use bank feeds or you will use Sync with PayPal. So it really depends on how you're going to manage this information and how it best fits your particular business model. Either way, whether you use bank feeds or Sync with PayPal, the idea is that at the end you reconcile it, right? That you reconcile it just like a bank account or just like a credit card. And the purpose of feeding the information is to help you do most of the work when it comes to reconciling it. So we'll talk about bank feeds versus Sync with PayPal for a second. So I'll start with bank feeds. So bank feeds is when you go into connecting your bank account or your credit card account into QuickBooks, PayPal is actually one of those choices. So if you are on this screen here and you're trying to use the Sync with PayPal account, just remember that's not what we're doing. What you're seeing on this screen here is a bank feed. And that's not the purpose of this webinar is to show you the Sync app. So I want to show you how bank feed works so you know exactly where you are if you happen to be experimenting with it now or trying to set this up. So if you are looking at this screen to set it up and finally you're looking at a screen like this, this is not the Sync with PayPal app. This is bank feeds. Okay, and the big difference between the app and the bank feeds, the biggest difference is that with bank feeds, the incoming monies come net. So for example, that transaction there that you see Robert Tell actually paid us $199.95 and the invoice is $199.95. And when Robert Tell asked me for an invoice, it would be $199.95. But the money that came into the bank was $193.85. So the PayPal Sync skips the step of breaking down the gross amount and the net amount, and they just show you the net amount. Now, if you don't care accounting-wise about breaking these two things down, then maybe bank feeds could work for you. And you can add that and put it into your net sales or whatever. But that is a significant difference between bank feeds and the PayPal Sync. The other significant difference is when expenses come in through the bank feeds, you have the opportunity to use the traditional QuickBooks rules, the banking rules, to choose, what vendor should be what account. Whereas with the PayPal Sync account, everything comes in under uncategorized, and you have to go back after the fact and reclassify them. So it's sort of a difference in workflow. So if your screen looks like this when you're actually on the Sync with PayPal app, that means you're using the correct app. You're using the app that we're showcasing on this webinar, not the other screens. If you look at this screen, that means that the sync it's happening with the actual new app that we're talking about. And you will get an authorization question from QuickBooks. Is asking you, are you sure QuickBooks can sync information with PayPal? And then right after, you will get the authorization question with PayPal, where PayPal's asking, wait a second, are you sure you want me to share information with Intuit? So if you get this double authorization process, that means you're using the Sync with PayPal app correctly, the one that we're going to showcase here. Then the next step is to do the actual setup, and just like the Shopify app, you do have to do the chart of account setup, where you have to say, hey, which accounts should map to what. And I'm going to show you that in the demonstration so you can see exactly what the screen looks like. And basically, after you set up all the mapping of the chart of accounts, just like the Shopify app, this is where they're very similar actually. You get to choose the date range of the transactions, and then they actually push into your QuickBooks, and it goes straight into your bank register. So how this is significantly different than bank feeds is that bank feeds puts it on a layer where you still have to classify things, right? And you can use the rules. Whereas this one doesn't. It pushes it straight into your PayPal register, making it really easy for you to eventually reconcile. But as you can see from this screenshot, all the expenses are on categorized expenses. So there's no way to tell PayPal, hey, PayPal, when it's vendor A, put it on this category. When it's vendor B, put it on that category. So the PayPal Sync places a lot of the value on syncing monies coming in, not so much of classifying money out. Whereas the bank feed, and I'll go back here to the screen with the bank feed, where bank feed places more value, though not much detail on the money coming in, but that gives you the ability to classify things using the rules, which is a great feature of QuickBooks for money coming out. So you can't use both. It's one or the other. If you use both, you're going to create this whole mess. Okay, so you just use one or the other. And by the way, maybe both could work. I just haven't figured out how to get it to work without making a mess. Anyway, maybe with matching or something, I would have to maybe do some experimentation. But I would only recommend that you use one or the other. So Sync with PayPal is mostly focused about downloading monies coming in, basically, I want to jump into the PayPal website real quick to kind of give you some familiarity because of a comment I said earlier of how important it is to reconcile the bank account. And so I'm going to switch over here to my PayPal account, and I may have to log in again. I may have timed out here. So let me log in again one more time. And there's my PayPal email, so if you want to contribute to the cost and send me some money, I would. So I'm kidding. Anyway, so basically here on the history section and on the reports, I can pull up something that kind of looks like a bank statement. And again, I'm guessing because PayPal is not a traditional bank, they don't call it bank statement, so it's called monthly financial summary. And I'll pull up any of these months, let's say May, for example. And then when I pull up this financial summary, I'm going to get that similar behavior of beginning balance and ending balance. Let me use a month that maybe has some numbers here, because I tend to just clear out those balances almost every month here. So let me see. Okay, there we go. So this one, for example, has a beginning balance of $1435.01 and an ending balance of $0. So when I go into QuickBooks Online, the purpose of the PayPal sync, and let me go into QuickBooks Online, and I'm going to go into my bank register. I already done all the sync already to kind of do the demonstration. So I'm going to go into my chart of accounts here, and then go into my bank register that I set up for this. I'm going to go to View Register, and this is exactly how the information from PayPal pushes into QuickBooks. So, for example, I had a sale coming in, and let me see that sale right here, whatever this one. There's a sale coming in. I'll click on Edit here to show you, and this is somebody paid me, right? This Chris Luke, whoever this happens to be, maybe a person from FastSpring, paid me this amount, and QuickBooks created a sales receipt during the sync process, and basically it saved me the time of putting the customer name, putting what it was. Now, unfortunately, it won't break down the items for you, so it'll just be like it'll just be a regular item called PayPal item. So if I wanted to go back and put some detail in it, I would have to put the detail in there. But this got pushed from PayPal into QuickBooks. I didn't write this down. Reference number, none of this stuff I did manually. This got pushed into it. If you look at some of the expenses, for example, let me open this one. This was a Microsoft. I must have paid for, I don't know, a subscription of Office or something like that. So yeah, there it is, Office 365 University. So for example, I paid this with my PayPal account, I didn't put this manually in QuickBooks. Everything came in here, who my vendor was, the description of what I paid for the amount. I do still have to change that categorization in there. If you happen to be an accountant, you know that QuickBooks Online Accountant has a tool called Reclassify that may help you do this pretty quick. But that's one of the deficiencies that the app has, is that it will push other transactions, which will make it great for reconciling, but it won't make it so easy for classification, because I have to go back and classify these. But I want to show you at the very end the whole purpose of pushing the money in and pushing the money out directly into QuickBooks is that I can do my reconcile right at the end. This is the ultimate purpose of that, is when I go to reconcile and I have my beginning balance and my ending balance. Let's see, let me do a May one. I'll just show you real quick. I haven't entered any of this information manually, so my ending balance for May, I believe, is $0. I'll click OK. I'll double click here my financial statement, and I'll change this to May. And again, this is how you will be doing your own PayPal reconciliations in QuickBooks after the information is pushed. Yeah, so my ending balance is 0. There's some debits and some credits. So in theory, I haven't tested this yet, but I hope it doesn't embarrass me. In theory, when I go in there and I check all my deposits, all my money in and my money coming out, there it goes, perfect. So it did work. The difference is 0, and basically the reconciliation of the PayPal account happens pretty much automatically. So that's the great beauty of using the PayPal app to push data straight into QuickBooks, is I never have to do any manual data entry. It all gets pushed in there. The only and it gets reconciled. The only drawback is I have to reclassify the transactions that were expenses that I would have to manually go in there and classify. So that's sort of the ultimate purpose of using Shopify. PayPal sync, the sync with PayPal app, to push the data and finally reconcile it. Now, something a lot of people don't know from PayPal, so I'll kind of show you, take advantage that I'm on the PayPal account here, is that there's a little button here called View Details, and if you click on that View Details button, you get something similar as a bank statement, where you actually get all the debits and the credits, and you see the breakdown of the gross amount and the net amount. And again, this is a PayPal thing, not a QuickBooks thing, but PayPal does give you a little bit of that sort of bank statement debits and credits feel. It doesn't look exactly like it, but the ultimate purpose is that you could manually reconcile these transaction by transaction if you needed to. However, as I showed you, I didn't touch anything in QuickBooks. I just hit the push button, and I'm able to reconcile it with one click. So you shouldn't have to do it manually, but if as a user you happen to sit there and click on and create transactions, you may have to do a manual processing of that reconciliation after the fact. Okay, so I'm going to click here, Finish Now, and then basically reconciles just okay. Okay, so that's the reconciliation process in PayPal after the information gets pushed. Now, let me do the final sort of assessment about the difference between using the bank feeds and the Sync with PayPal app. So with the Sync with PayPal app, all transactions go straight into the register. Merchant fees are separate, and it's mostly useful when sales receipts are not previously created into QuickBooks, and you want to push that information without having to type it in there. Bank feeds downloads all the transactions into the downloaded transactions menu or the bank feeds menu, which then you have to push one by one. You can use the renaming rules to categorize things for you or to match previously created tools. So if you are creating the invoices in QuickBooks before you're bringing the PayPal download, because you happen to be doing inventory control, or for whatever reason you do the invoice in QuickBooks before you push it in there, and then you can use PayPal bank feeds just to match them. And that's when it's useful. The only challenge I have here is that it's downloaded as a net sales, so the fees are deducted from the deposited amount, which will require you to put that fee inside of the invoice or the sales receipt, which I'm not sure if that could cause a problem in terms of presenting it to your client later on and something like that. So I want to, since I didn't spend any time on the bank feeds portion, let me just, for contrast, show you bank feeds with PayPal. So I'm going to go into transactions banking, and this is different. Again, this is different than the sync system. This is with the bank feed system, and notice that this particular deposit here, 193.85, this is coming net of the fee, and it's not being pushed into my bank register. I actually have to say, okay, this customer is this category, and click on add, right? And then what happens is, and I'm going to show you in contrast, I'm going to go into customers here. I'm going to go into Shopify customer, and then somewhere on here, I think it's maybe this one. It's probably this one because that was my latest sale. So this one, for example, this one, the real amount was $199.95, and PayPal Sync brings it as a gross amount, because that difference between the $199.95 and the $193 is going to be manifested inside of my register. So I'm going to go into my chart of accounts here, and I go into my sync, and I created one bank account for the feeds and one for the sync, so I can just kind of demonstrate the two. So I'm going to go here into the sync register, and I'm going to show you how that fee came in separate. So there is my gross amount that got downloaded, and then there's my fee. And now what's nice about it is the PayPal fees, those get classified. Okay, that's because, let me go into the app here and show you the settings of the PayPal fee. Because you actually, the only expense that gets classified with a sync app is the PayPal fee itself. Everything else comes in as that uncategorized amount. So while I click on this, and we're almost at the top of the hour, while I click on this, I'll ask my Intuit colleagues to let me know, are there any questions that I should address? So there's a question for the monitors here, Intuit. Are there any questions you think I should be addressing? Okay, they're muted, so how? Let me see. What about shipping cost? Okay, so PayPal Sync, the Sync with PayPal doesn't split shipping and gross sale amount. It just comes as one lump sum account. Let me see there. How much does Shopify charge per transaction? I already said go to the Shopify website. PayPal creates a new customer. Okay, so that's an interesting one too. When PayPal does the sync, and I'll show you, when PayPal does the sync, the new customer is actually created, or the vendor is actually created. And let me go to vendors here to show you. So all the vendors are created as emails in this case, right? So when I download expenses through PayPal Sync, all my vendors are created through their email address. Okay, because that's how it does it. So you kind of have to think about, is this going to work for you, right? But when Shopify downloads it, you have the option of not doing that and just having one lump customer called Shopify customer. So that was the comment that somebody said is, is it possible for so the question that they're asking here, is it possible for PayPal to just create one lump sum customer? And I have not figured out if that functionality is in there. So for the PayPal people that are on the webinar listening, that could be a useful piece, where people are actually wanting the option of clicking a button and say, you know what, I really don't want let me just go into the settings here. Let me answer that by going into the settings. So I don't think I saw, and this is the PayPal sync with PayPal settings. I don't think I saw the option to, let me go to app settings, to avoid creating a customer each time. No. Okay. Actually, yeah. It sounds like I made a mistake here. So down here on the option it says PayPal customer, and then it says all the details. So probably, and I haven't tried it, probably is this option here called do not track. That is likely to be the one that if I choose do not track, it'll just do one customer with no details. So that's likely to be the one. I haven't tested it yet, but that is likely to answer that question that that person from the webinar asked is, is there an option to do that? Okay, the other question is, does PayPal break down sales tax? The answer is yes. So that's that area. If you go through the settings here, you can actually see that you have a different chart of accounts for sales tax. So yes, sales tax is one of the items that do get broken down, but that's about it. That's about it. Let me see. How do I get sales tax info into QBO? So I just answered that question. All right, so I'm done reading the questions. So I'll ask my Intuit person one more time. Are there any other questions that I should address before I jump into the outro, the conclusion? No? Okay, so it sounds like there's no question. Okay, so let's talk about the what I call the consultant's opportunity. So if you happen to be an accountant that manages multiple clients or a QuickBooks consultant, what is the opportunity here? So one of the opportunities is if you have a client that has a unique product that they should be selling online, and they don't want to get into e-commerce because it's too expensive or too complicated, because e-commerce has this huge stigma of like, oh my God, it's just so much programming and so expensive. Shopify, I'm not a programmer at all. I built my Shopify shopping cart in a question of hours, and I maintain it, and I still run it. And granted, I only have maybe 10 sales a week, but it's very easy to use platform. So as a consultant, you can actually enable some of your clients that I want to get online in terms of selling their product, and Shopify makes it so much easier. Now, in terms of PayPal, where I've seen a lot of success with PayPal is it's people selling internationally. One of the very difficult things about selling internationally is finding a way to get paid. A lot of international clients have credit cards that will just not go through in your standard U.S. merchants, or they present a lot of risk, or for whatever reason the customer doesn't really have credit cards because in that country they don't manage credit cards. So PayPal has been very successful for international e-commerce. I mean, not just that, just in U.S. commerce, I know that when I'm shopping around on a website, I know when I see that PayPal button in there, I am more likely to buy, because when I click on the PayPal button, I just log in and that's it. When I click on buy now and I have to take out my wallet and put my credit card number, something about, in my opinion, something about the psychology of taking out your credit card, it feels like it costs more than just logging in and clicking on the PayPal. So I think that as a merchant, you would sell more because of that particularity. You would sell more with PayPal because a lot of clients just prefer to buy through PayPal. And also, the most important consultant opportunity here is avoid double data entry. So if you have a lot of transactions, bring them with PayPal Sync. If you're not really using inventory or anything like that, just push them all to PayPal Sync. I know I have a client that sells $10 subscriptions to some website about some videos. He teaches people how to comb their hair or something, and people are paying $10 a month for to watch these videos, and he doesn't want to sit there and create an invoice for $10 times 100 clients every single month. This sync with PayPal just works wonderful for them. So I think that is the true consultant's opportunity of not only just learning these two apps, just using them yourself, or encouraging your clients to use it. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the apps.com website real quick. So I'm gonna I'm done with that. And again, Intuit reps, if there are any things I didn't answer, any questions that you have to that I have to answer, just let me know and just interrupt me real quick. So I'm going to show you the apps.com website, because if you have not visited the apps.com website in a while, I strongly recommend that you do. As a matter of fact, let me do a polling question real quick. And we're almost done with the webinar, so I just like to know how many people have visited the apps.com website to see if it's worth it for me to show it a little bit. And if you haven't, yeah, it's about 50-50. If you haven't, check it out, because you'll be surprised on how fast the third-party app market has grown, and how important the third-party app market is to the QuickBooks ecosystem. Because Intuit, it's growing in terms of the client base, and more small businesses and even smaller businesses are moving into QuickBooks, and some larger businesses are working into QuickBooks. So no longer QuickBooks is only for one particular set of small businesses. Now some of the really small ones, self-employed, and some of the larger ones are moving into QuickBooks, specifically because of the third-party marketplace, because you've been able to sync CRM apps, obviously PayPal apps. You're able to sync so many different things that people didn't really think about using QuickBooks before, but they were using other apps And now they're being encouraged to use QuickBooks because there's no double data entry. So if I'm going here, this is what the apps.com with. Look at all these apps that are here. There's hundreds of apps in here, obviously including Shopify, obviously including PayPal. There's hundreds of apps here. T-Sheets being one of the more popular ones. Transaction Pro Importer, very popular one. Method CRM, other popular one. So strongly recommend you check out the apps.com website. The apps are a very strong part of the Intuit ecosystem. Okay, let me put the polling question up and the polling question for the CPE. And again, while you put that in there, I'll ask the Intuit reps again, are there any questions? And I'll ask you to respond this time so I know that you're hearing me. Is there, from Intuit, are there any more questions that you think I should cover?
Hector, we had one in regards to does this run on QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop, and sync with PayPal and I believe Shopify are for QuickBooks Online.
That is correct. So the specific apps that I've shown today are only QuickBooks Online. Now, that does not mean that there are third-party developers that created a PayPal to QuickBooks Desktop sync. There is in fact, those, or a Shopify to QuickBooks Desktop. By the way, the Shopify one, not 100% sure about, but I think I read about one. I actually myself use QuickBooks Desktop for my practice, and I use Shopify, and I don't sync them because we manage inventory, and I really don't want that information to be pushed. So I actually end up manually putting them in my QuickBooks file. I just reconcile them with that. So I haven't used one for desktop yet, and I don't, because of the volume, I really don't mind it. But there's a big company. Let me just pull it up here. Let me finish the polling question. And so for the people that want their CPE, I'll give you 10 more seconds to put the polling question, the polling answer there, please. So going once, going twice. Okay. So last time to put your polling question, to put the polling answer. Thank you. So if you want your CPE, put your polling answer. Thank you. I'll close it. Perfect. So there's so WebGility is one of them. So I showed it earlier, and this webinar is not designed to talk about WebGility, but WebGility makes a desktop product that works with Pro, Premier, Enterprise, and it's a monthly subscription, and that one can bring multi-channel sales and not just Shopify. It can bring multi-channel sales. Another big one it's called T-Hub, and that T-Hub, I think it doesn't do QuickBooks Online. It's just QuickBooks Desktop. So these are the sort of the two big developers that I know, and there may be more. And I'm only endorsing these two because I've used them that actually sync multi-channels, including Shopify and stuff like that, with QuickBooks Desktop. What about any other question? Was that the only question, or was there another one that I didn't answer? Okay, I guess not. Okay, so the very last thing I'll tell you is November 2nd to the 4th in 2015, San Jose, California, Intuit will have a second QuickBooks Connect event. The first QuickBooks Connect event was incredible. There was food, there was drinks, there was live music, there was tons of learning for accountants. I heard some Intuit executives actually mention that they may sell out this year because of the amount of interest there is for it. If you want to go, if you're a QuickBooks fan, whether you're a user, an accountant, a consultant, a developer, you gotta make it to this event. It's tons of fun. It's relatively inexpensive for everything you get against it, and it's just basically an all QuickBooks event. So hope to see you in November for that. Anyway, if there are no more questions, I think there's no more questions. Thank you very much for attending today. Hope that you're able to work with PayPal and Shopify and make your life easier in terms of data entry. Thanks again, and you guys have a wonderful day.